All right, so I figured what I would do today is show you guys my um, big five personality sort of test results. So we got neuroticism 53, extroversion 88, openness to experience 105, agreeableness 81, and conscientiousness 101. Yeah, so I think this is considered to be a fairly scientifically accurate test by today's standards. I used to be more into the Myers-Briggs system. I do think that has like some interesting things that, some general qualities that could be useful in when you're first like, becoming an adult and you're learning about yourself. But I think later on I don't think it's particularly well founded, and I think it's a bit restrictive in terms of like, okay, you have these traits and now you're going to, uh, I think it tends to encourage people to try to behave, in the way that they think that their personality, should be according to this, Myers-Briggs system. So I think the Myers-Briggs is something that is not particularly scientific or well founded, and but it can be useful to like start to help a person to think about like, what is it that they value, who is it that they are, and then it's very has a lot of descriptive things about a person that could be help a person sort of gain a vocabulary for thinking about, okay, these are the types of things that I'm interested in. So I think it's a good starting point, but I don't think it should be taken too serious, and it should be taken with a grain of salt. So yeah, so I just did this big five thing. This is a more general. It's a little bit less specific, I think, than the Myers-Briggs, but also it's interesting, and I don't really know too much about it except that it's considered to be, that there is an actual measurable scientific method behind it. So yeah, neuroticism 53, extroversion 88, openness to experience 105, agreeableness 81, conscientiousness 101. So neuroticism refers to the tendency to experience negative feelings. Your score on neuroticism is low, indicating that you are exceptionally calm, composed, and unflappable. You do not react with intense emotions, even to situations that most people would describe as stressful. Yeah, I think that this is definitely more true of me now, as in my current state. I've done a lot of work to become a more, you know, a less neurotic person. But in the past, I was definitely more prone to worry, and but I've always been pretty good at also managing my emotions. So perhaps even then, I was lower on this neuroticism scale. And then there's like all these subcategories here for neuroticism: anxiety low, anger low, depression low. Yeah, I used to be far more depressed than I am now. So I do think that these scores will probably change throughout a person's lifetime. And some of them I don't think will, remain static as a person evolves and, goes through various phases and becomes either more mature or, has traumatic experiences, which, can be very profoundly personality shifting and altering. And then, okay, so self consciousness high. So this one is interesting. So still high on self consciousness. Yeah, I would say, yeah, there's some truth to that. Self conscious individuals are sensitive about what others think of them. Yeah, that's true. I do tend to reflect about what others think of me. I do also nowadays sort of try to shut that part of my brain off because it's not as helpful as one may think. I think when we're teenagers, we tend to be more self-conscious about what other people think because we overthink things, because we don't really know anything and we don't really know how to trust ourselves yet. So I think, yeah, I'm better with this now than I have been. But yeah, definitely when I was younger, I would, every like conversation that I had with a new, acquaintance, not so much with my well-established relationships, but with new acquaintances, I was very constantly like looking over my shoulder, and it's like, oh, what if they think, what if I said this and then they thought that, and what if, I must have, made a fool of myself in all these different ways. So yeah, this is definitely more true of me in the past, but also probably still relevant now. So immoderation low, vulnerability low. Yeah, I used to be more vulnerable, uh, and definitely, yeah, more susceptible to what other people said about me. And now I don't, I tend to dismiss people because I have a pretty strongly positive opinion of myself nowadays, because I have more my own values and I live more according to those values. So if I'm hitting the mark of what I think is important, then, I'm not going to consider what some random person who has some, psychological problems probably, is projecting onto me, because a lot of, the negativity that we experience from other people is usually actually their own issue. And then because it's so uncomfortable for them to think about, they project it onto somebody else and say, oh, well, you're like this. But, in truth, it's actually them who is probably more like that than you when they criticize you. Yeah. And then, in moderation, yeah, I've never had a problem with, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's been times when I, binged on certain things, but I've always been pretty good at moderating, and I've, become better as I've matured. Anyhow, so friendliness, high. Yeah, I definitely consider myself a friendly person. I tend to be friendly even to people I don't like particularly, and if I don't like you, you probably won't know it. But if I do like you, you will definitely feel that I like you, because I'm going to invest into you, and I will make sure that you know that, you're, because I don't really just like people, I love the people that I like. I tend to love them. So I feel very strongly about the people that are important to me, and, the people that I don't like, I'll be friendly to them, but I will avoid them and maneuver in a way where I don't have to interact with them. If I see them on the street or in the store, I will try to not even interact with them if possible. But if I have to, then I will be friendly, and they won't necessarily know that I find them obnoxious. So, yeah. Gregariousness, low. So, yeah, that's probably true. I don't tend to, and yeah, throughout my life, I've not necessarily sought to interact with new people on the regular basis. I've often stayed within my friend group, and that's been sometimes uncomfortable. And because I like to have, there's often been, people that I wanted to be friends with, but I was like too shy to make that happen and be word enough in that way. Okay, assertiveness high. Yeah, I'd say I'm fairly assertive. I used to be less assertive during my, for because of traumatic experiences during my teenage years. I think my assertiveness went more into my shadow self. So I was much more timid because I was, had a very critical parent, and I would say, abusive parent who was very hostile toward me. And a lot of the adults gave me a negative self-image, so I was far less assertive. But I think I'm a naturally assertive person, but because of this negative feedback that I got during my youth, my assertiveness went more into my unconscious, shadow, what, Carl Jung would consider the shadow. But in recent years, I've become more myself. So now I've scored high on assertiveness because that's more my natural inclination and personality. Activity level high. Okay, active individuals lead fast-paced, busy lives. They move about quickly, energetically, and vigorously, and they are involved in many activities. People who score low. Okay, so yeah, I'd say I'm always, sort of working on a project. I always want to do something. I have spent a lot of my time, you know, because of, trauma. I've spent a lot of my time in past years, just playing video games and wasting a lot of time. But that is not really necessarily what I wanted to do, but it's what I felt like the only thing that was really available to me, because I felt like there was like just society had pretty much told me that I'm a bad person and I'm not really wanted and that my skills weren't really welcomed. So yeah, it used to be, I would my activity level was high in video gaming, but not so much in anything else. Yeah, video gaming and media consumption. But now, I pretty much quit all video gaming, and I'm doing less media consumption, and now I'm doing more creative work and more of what's actually fulfilling to me, like, doing art, writing, going outside, going on walks, doing sports, doing tennis, interacting with the people that I love in my life, writing letters to my loved ones, interacting with my loved ones, showing up for them and being completely, giving them a good experience. I love giving, my friends and my loved ones a great experience. I love to be a good host and to be generous with the people that I love. So excitement seeking is high. Yeah, I would say I'm fairly adventurous. I like to skateboard. I've always been pretty brave and able to, put myself in danger. I wouldn't say I'm excessively, an excessive adrenaline addict, but if I see that the risk is reasonable and I'm not necessarily, going to be killed or, injured severely, and I can see, this might be a fun thing to do, yeah, then I tend to, have pretty high level of courageousness. And yeah, also my values, the values that I live by is that I feel like it's important to be brave and to, if you have to, die for something or for someone that you love, then, it should not be, you shouldn't be like thinking about it too much. I think you should be willing to sacrifice yourself for what, for the people that you love. And, I think that is something that may sound a bit extreme for modern day thinking, because we're so, considered, our body and safety, and, we don't really think in terms of protecting our tribes and being men, being very masculine and sort of using our body as a resource to protect our loved ones. But, I feel that, if the situation, if someone that I loved was in danger and I needed to, possibly lay my life down for them, then, I would be willing to do that and not feel like I've lost something, so much anyway. So that's sort of my thinking about that. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's somewhat related to excitement seeking. A cheerfulness score is high. So yeah, definitely used to be far more sullen because of traumatic experiences, but naturally I'm actually a very positive person. And, there's the universe to me is, something good is always happening, essentially. No matter how horrible the situation is, I am one who can laugh at, the darkest sort of, situations. I mean, I could make some jokes that would really be off-putting to the general public right now, so I won't do it. But yeah, I can look at, very dire situations because I've lived in extremely uncomfortable, dire, sort of, gloomy circumstances, and humor has been one of the ways I've dealt with that. And I think inherently good and evil. Evil enhances good, so therefore evil tends to serve, it serves a purpose that ultimately, leads to good. And, we can complain about, this and this and this happened to me, but ultimately these are the things that we call evil. Those are things that, I mean, they could kill us, but what is really lost? Nothing is really truly lost, because this universe is ultimately, my belief is that God is present in all, and the universe is sort of like figuring things out through this relative form manifest world. And what's the purpose of all of it? Why isn't everything automatically heavenly and perfect? I don't know. Maybe this is like the playground for angels or something like that. Maybe the earth is where we as angels, we want to challenge, and we like come down to earth, and we like try to slay the most powerful demon. And we each one of us is sort of given within us, in our spirit, sort of like the most difficult challenge, or the challenge that is sort of meaningful to us, so we sort of choose our own adventure essentially on this earth. At least that's my sort of current way of looking at the universe. I don't know if that's literally true, but that's sort of my feeling on how on what's maybe the meaning of life is, and the meaning, not just the meaning of existence, but the meaning specifically here on this planet, is to figure out how to confront our own demons, and to sort of discover our true nature and our true capabilities, and overcome some very difficult things. And some people have very comfortable lives that they grow up in, but within the comfortable life is the challenge of taking things for granted. So actually, I think too much comfort is actually a curse, because if you it takes a very strong individual to choose the discomfort that will end up leading to a greater fulfillment, over simple comfort and a somnambulist state of life, where they can just sleepwalk through everything, and everything is easy, and everyone tells them how great they are. But it takes someone truly strong to say, hey, I have all these advantages, but you know what, I'm going to put those aside, and I'm going to really challenge myself. So I would say, sometimes comfort could be the greatest curse to somebody, and it could be a very powerful demon to overcome. So yeah, I don't really envy people who are better off than me, and more wealthy, or born into better situation than I was, because I think in some ways they have a more difficult road to really find themselves, and to really discover what they're capable of. Because why become strong if you can remain weak and relatively comfortable, but maybe not very satisfied, and kind of pathetic and childlike. Anyhow, so um openness to experience. Openness to experience describes a dimension of cognitive style that distinguishes imaginative, creative people from down to earth, conventional people. Your score on openness to experience is high, indicating you enjoy novelty, variety, and change. You are curious, imaginative, and creative. Yeah, I think that would definitely be true, and it's probably true of most of my family members. Imagination high, artistic interests high, emotionality high. Yeah, I think emotions, or I think this is sort of how we discover the meaning of life. If there is no feeling to it, and we're just doing it on an intellectual level, then that is all things sort of become subjective and lose the points. But it's within our emotions that we find meaning. And so that's why we should seek things that make us feel strong emotions in life. And we not necessarily so always do the thing that seems intellectually correct, but I think often we should seek something, you know, even like, yeah, definitely like painful experiences. I think we should seek these things. We should confront these things. And also, profound feelings of, where we find profound feelings of love and appreciation. This is the other, thing. So anything that makes us feel something, you will discover far more about yourself and about the meaning of life, by seeking, instead of seeking wealth and pleasure, you will find far more out about yourself through seeking things that make you uncomfortable and make you feel love and powerful feelings. And I think the way society is set up now is we're basically told not to feel anything too strongly, and that we should be rational and think about maximizing profits and long-term planning and delayed gratification. So, and then it leaves us as very pathetic, soulless individuals by the end of our life. And a lot of people buy into this, but I don't. I don't think we should live highly rational lives. I think we should live highly emotional lives, and people would be far less miserable and pathetic and depressed, and self pity would be a lot lower if people would go with what makes them feel something rather than what makes them what people tell them. Oh, that you're not being sensible. Well, who gives a fuck about sensible? We're all going to die, so let's do something that makes us, brings us closer to God. And what do I mean by God? Something, I think God speaks to us through our feelings. So when our feelings are strong, then we're in communication with God, essentially. So adventurousness low. So this is interesting now. So now this is a little bit in contrast to this other thing, but high scores on adventurousness, are eager to try new activities, travel to foreign lands, and experience different things. Okay, so I mean, I do like to travel to new lands, and I like to experience different things. Do I like to try new activities? Yeah, I like to try new activities. I think that's the one I'm a little bit, sometimes I am a little bit hesitant, because there's so many things I already like to do. I don't necessarily want to try something that isn't, but I don't know. This one, I'm not sure exactly why it's low, because I do like to try new things and travel. They find familiar and routine boring. Well, that's not true about me. I do like familiarity and routine. I do like these things. And I think finding out who you are and then finding out what you like, I think I mostly enjoy when I'm able to find a routine that I enjoy. I do like to stay to it for the most part, but I am flexible with that, and I am able to adjust and try out new things. So yeah, and we'll take a new route home just because it's different. Yeah, we'll do that. I like to try new paths. So yeah, again, there's some variance here to this low score on adventurousness. Yeah, I would say I'm fairly adventurous, but also I like my routine. So two things that seemingly conflict. So some of these answers may have been difficult for me to answer because sometimes it's not just one or the other. Sometimes it's both, and the way we're taught to think in terms of polarity, but essentially, two sides are actually part of one whole. So there's the distinction is less literal in reality, because the literal truth is even black and white sort of exist on a spectrum rather than in two separate entirely separate categories. So they're not exactly opposite. They're actually part of something that is more connected on a level that is maybe perhaps a bit beyond normal human thinking. Anyhow, intellect high. So I would consider myself fairly intelligent and extremely intelligent in the areas of interest that I choose to pursue. Liberalism high. Yeah, I would say I tend to agree more with the Liberal Party, but even more than that, I would say beyond, I'm not, politically, I would say I'm somewhat agnostic. I think, the conservatives are, often right, and I would say the liberals are often right, but I do tend to vote liberal over conservative because, but I think, liberal is a liberal personality will vote, uh, will not rigidly stay to one side or the other. A liberal personality will, see, sort of examine a broader perspective. So what is considered politically liberal is not actually liberal. I would say you can find people who are very rigidly conservative in their liberal camp, and then, then personality wise they would be more conservative. And then there are, perhaps, people who vote very conservative politically, but then they're more, they have a lot of liberal personality traits within, in terms of like, you know, uh, so, or openness to experience type of attitude. So I think that can be a bit misleading. But yeah, I would say personality wise, I am have highly liberal in that. But politically, I would say I'm somewhat agnostic. Okay, agreeableness reflects individual differences and concern with cooperation and social harmony. Agreeable individuals value getting along with others. I would say that your your high level of agreeableness indicates a strong interest in others' needs and well-being. You are pleasant, sympathetic, and cooperative. Yeah, I would say this is true about me for the most part. I am learning to assert my boundaries and to be more true to who I am, which is definitely something that I've, you know, I would say I was far more disagreeable when I was a child, but then I became more agreeable because I was put into circumstances where my primary parent was very disagreeable to me. So I had to learn to be agreeable. So maybe agreeableness is perhaps, yeah, I don't know. It could go either way, but maybe my agreeableness is partially a learned trait, and in some ways I have agreeableness in my nature. But also, when I was younger, I would be, somewhat oppositional and very frank with people. And I would say I am naturally a frank person, but I'm also a person who I don't, I choose my battles very wisely, and I don't, I have, if I sense that someone wants to fight with me, I try to maneuver around them and avoid them as much as possible if I have, if I can. If they're in a social group that I'm in, I try to be friendly. And if it's not that big of a deal, if it's not a deal breaking sort of situation, then I will sort of, try to laugh it off and, you know, avoid getting into conflict with them. But if I really see that there's like something that's going to really irritate me throughout the long term, then I will probably write them a letter and say, hey, you know what, we're going to have to like figure something out because this is not working for me. And, and if I can work it out, then I will, work it out. And if they seem like they're willing to work with me, then, then I will work with them. But if it's someone who just wants to cause problems, and if I'm in a group where they're just like, oh yeah, you know what, we would rather have this person around than, deal with this problem, then I say, okay, well, you guys can have this person, but I'm going to exit, because I would rather, exit a situation than even a group. And even if it's painful for me, I will usually, if they don't, if I see like a little bit of cowardice in the group to really confront things honestly, I'm not going to be part of a toxic situation, and I will, exit that. And because I don't tolerate toxic people very well. And yeah, I understand like, this is my less liberal attitude towards people. If someone's messed up and they want to be passive aggressive or openly hostile and controlling in a way that I think is very disrespectful and harmful, then I have no problem just cutting them off completely. I don't care what happens to people who are obnoxious and, don't want to learn. That's for them to figure out. If they're adults, then I think it's our responsibility to kind of like put them out into the wilderness and allow them to figure out, hey, you know what? Maybe your strategy was working when everyone was, supporting this system of abuse, but maybe try the wilderness for a little while. See how much the wild animals care about you, because if you're not going to care about us, I don't really care about you. So, good luck. Anyhow, it's not so much a feeling of I hate you. It's just I don't want to be around you, and I don't have any real reason to care about you. So, sorry. That's how it is. I don't really empathize with people who I find are somewhat psychopathic. Anyhow, trust. My trust low trust score. Yeah, I don't really trust people. I treat them accordingly to how I observe them. I have a very quick sense of like, is this a person full of shit? Is this person a liar? I can tell by the way they, hold their face, their facial, if their facial expressions are like, an insincere smile, or, they make snarky remarks, and, their jabs, you can figure this out very quickly if someone is inauthentic and a liar. So, yeah, my trust. Do I trust? Yeah, I trust what my eyes are telling me. I trust, what my senses. I trust what my ears are telling me. But do I trust, what people say? No, I don't trust what people say. I believe what I see. I'll believe it when I see it. And, what I see tends to be correct. So I don't know. This is how it's worked for me. Um, morality high. Yeah, I would say I'm a highly moral person. One of my favorite shows is Star Trek: The Next Generation. Captain Picard, extremely moral person. Tends to do the right thing. He was sort of my father figure during my teenage years. I would watch Star Trek, and Captain Picard was my sort of surrogate father. And I really agree with the principles of the Star Trek, the Federation inside of Star Trek. So I don't know, and I've obviously that's where I was as a teenager and as a child, but I also draw my morality from philosophy and various religious scriptures. I'm interested in all religions, and I think there's valuable things in most of them. And I like to like take the things, you could say it. I'm a bit of a cherry picker when it comes to religion. Like, for example, I do like Jesus, and I like the Bible, but if there's something that seems a bit off in the Bible, and and it doesn't seem to apply to current ways of thinking, then I have no problem discarding it. And I don't think we should take religious scriptures and just completely throw them out because like there's one fucked up thing in them. But I will say that also the Bible it wasn't written by one person. It was scriptures throughout hundreds of it was written over hundreds of years by many different people. So you can't really take this whole book as one solid narrative from beginning to end and say, hey, like I'm gonna throw it out completely because it has these parts where it's like this draconian sort of like God that wants to throw people into flames in hell for doing some minor fucking thing that would be considered by today's standards way over the top with punitive punishment. Anyhow, so yeah, that's sort of the way I look at that in terms of morality. I don't know. Maybe that explains some my feelings on morality. I think morality should fit. The punishment should fit the crime, and I think sometimes old scriptures are a little bit extreme in the punishment area, and yeah, but I do think there's a lot of wisdom to be gained from studying religion, and don't just read one book. Read them all and compare them to each other. You can't really say you're a Christian if you've only read the Bible and say, okay, I read the Bible, my parents believed in the Bible, so now I'm a Christian. No, you're just a fucking sheep then, because if you didn't choose religion. What is choice? Choice is not being aware that there's other stuff out there. So if you say you're a Christian, you need to study some other stuff to really decide, is this really who I am, or am I just choosing the path of least resistance? Because being a good person according to your religion should not be an easy thing. It's not something that you just inherit and therefore you are automatically this person. No, you actually have to challenge yourself and find out, who am I? Who am I under stress? Who am I when my beliefs are challenged? Who am I when I've studied all these other things? Am I really a zealous person about what I believe, or am I a coward who's just like, blah, 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 yeah, I'm going to say the party line. I'm going to do, what everyone else, I'm going to be the most extreme person. I'm going to be the extreme advocate for my religion because it's the popular thing in my environment. So, if you're like one of these fucking people who grew up in this fanatic, cult-like environment, and you're this guy who like goes out and tells people like, yeah, I'm like the ultimate like Christian, or I am the ultimate this, or I'm the ultimate that. Fuck you. You're not shit. You're just a coward, and maybe you should rethink what you're, because you're actually the opposite of a true believer. You're just you're a parasite, and you're probably also like, you're an opportunist, and you're doing what's easy and convenient for you. And I don't have any respect for people like this. Anyhow, so that sounds maybe a bit venomous, but I've been subject to too many people like this, and these people exist in all areas of life. These people exist in politics. These uber zealous Republicans, uber zealous liberal Democrats, and these uber zealous. I cannot stand these people who pretend like they have values, but they're really just preaching to the choir and like to wag their fingers and use the negative elements of whatever thing they've weaseled themselves into, and started poisoning. These are the devils. Be aware of these devils. They have fun stirring up the passions, but ultimately they're leading you on the path to hell. And hell is a state of mind that you can create very quickly on this planet. And heaven is also a state of mind, and you can create that, but it takes courage. And anyway, so that's my stance on morality. So altruism high, I like to take care of the people that I love. Cooperation high, I like to cooperate and figure out how to work with the people that I care about. Modesty low, I would say I'm not naturally a modest person. I think modesty is a strategy. Why are people modest? Nowadays it's very popular to not speak very highly of yourself, but what are you actually doing? You're concealing what your virtues are to be seen as, he's so humble. But in the past I was probably more modest, but I think it is good to be aware of what your strengths are. And I'm not I don't openly praise myself with like a grandiose narcissist or something like that. But when I was answering these questions in this Big Five thing, I was very matter of fact about what I think my strengths are. And I've done a lot of work psychologically with my friend and sort of mentor, and he's helped me to uncover what my strengths are. So if you know what your strengths are, never allow people to tell you that you're not worth it, that you're not good enough. You may be like in the top percentage of people in your relative the talents that you have. You should value them very highly, and you should think of yourself highly, and you have no reason to think less of you, think of yourself low in this world, because ultimately it comes down to you. You're on this journey, and you need to be your top advocate when it comes down to it. You need to be the person who motivates you, the person who gets you up out of bed, because eventually your parents are not going to be there. And when they're not there to pat you on the back, you need to stay strong, because not only do you need to have a positive attitude about yourself to motivate yourself, but you need to be a positive person to think positively about yourself, to continue to do what's right for you and your family and your loved ones and your community and your country, and ultimately this world as a whole. So, this world needs positive people. We don't need nihilists. We don't need misanthropes. We need people who love themselves and who love humanity. So that's probably why I scored low on modesty, because I think it's something that is pessimism and skepticism. Skepticism is good. Scientific skepticism has its value, but pessimism, I think, is toxic, and we should avoid it. At a high rate. Anyway, sympathy value score is high. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I am sympathetic to people who are hard workers, who are positive, and who move forward, but I would say I don't really pity people who just want to sit around and cry like, little babies and be like little infants until they're 90 years old and still blame their parents or whatever situation, whatever happened in the past. I don't believe in reparations. I don't believe in relying on others, and I don't believe in a victim mentality. I believe in being a progressive, proactive person who takes charge in your own life, takes responsibility. It's not the government's job. It's nice if we have a government that can help us in some areas. I don't object to social programs, but we shouldn't rely on social programs. We should rely on ourselves, and we shouldn't complain too much. And I am sympathetic to people who are, people who came from very difficult circumstances and turned it around. And, those are the people that I love, and those are the people in the world. I think when, Jesus said, the Lord will come before the world, and he will become before all the nations and all the kings, and he will separate the lambs from the goats. Essentially, I think what that means is, and what you did to the least of mine, therefore you did it to me. The lambs are the people who, it was difficult, but we got the job done. And the goats are the ones who are just like, wah, 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 wah. Me, complain. And, if we just had this perfect system, utopian system, then everything would be great. But meanwhile, they're just trashing each other and ripping everything apart. And what are they accomplishing? Nothing, because they're narcissist psychopaths. So, those goats, I'm fine with, those people being exited from reality, essentially. But, don't read too much into that. I mean, metaphorically speaking, of course. Anyway, I don't believe in, obviously some kind of horrific, cleansing sort of thing. I think, these things happen naturally anyway, because, that's, how nature is sort of designed. Weakness falls off, strength continues to grow eventually. And the weak people, they also, help the strong be stronger, because, they challenge us, and they give us, through the difficult challenges they present to us, they serve, if nothing else, as a valuable thing to strengthen us. I do believe, what doesn't kill us may injure us and kill us slowly, but also it can also serve to make us stronger. So, if you take that literally, I think that's kind of how it plays out sometimes. Okay, so conscientiousness. Your scoring conscientiousness is high. This means you set clear goals and pursue them with determination. People regard you as reliable and hardworking. Yeah, I would say that is definitely more true now than it's ever been about me. I stick to my goals. I work hard. The things that I believe in, I work towards very, relentlessly, and I'm totally fine with, making sacrifices and sacrificing my comfort in order to achieve what I feel is fulfilling and what I feel strongly about. So, definitely, I would say, high conscientiousness. Yeah, probably true about me. Self-efficiency, self-efficacy, high. Let's read a little bit about that. Self-efficacy. Self-efficacy high, describes it confidence in one's ability to accomplish things. Yeah, definitely. Most of what I've learned is semi self-taught. I've had a good mentor, but ultimately, in some areas, but I've spent a lot of time studying things and learning things and developing my craft through essentially doing my own work and my own research, and being brave and always wanting to move things forward. Yeah, so high scorers believe that they have the intelligence, common sense, drive, and self-control necessary to achieving success. Yeah, very true about me. Orderliness high, definitely more true about me than when I was in the past more depressed. I love to create order and clean my room and brush my teeth and work out and do the right things, because when I know the correct thing to do, I think it's my responsibility to do it. So yeah. Dutifulness, yeah, again, that's high, very similar to the last one. Achievement striving, yeah, very high. Definitely want to do things in this life, and I'm not going to be hard on myself if I fail. But what matters is that I put forth everything that I had and was willing to even lose my life in the process for my true beliefs and for my loved ones, and to make the world a better place. Because if you know for a fact that if you may be injured or die in the process, but you know that what the legacy that you'll leave behind will be better for this world, then I think you should be willing to do that as a moral human being. Achievement striving high, yes. Yeah, again, I think it's important to have goals to motivate us, to move us through life, and we should achieve things that we feel strongly about. We should never don't care. We shouldn't care very little about what, it's good to have parents that may guide us in a direction that, because, when you're younger, you may not know what direction to go into, but at some point you're going to have to look at everything that everyone has ever told you, and you're going to have to start making a list of, okay, this applies to me, this applies to me, this does not apply to me, this does not apply to me. And then you're going to have to get rid of some of this old stuff and find your own goals in life and achieve what you feel in your heart is correct. Because even your parents, you should honor your parents and be respectful of your parents, and you should listen to your parents. But at the end of the day, you need to do what your heart is telling you to do. And otherwise you're actually not honoring your parents, because by being untrue to yourself, you can't be true to anyone, essentially. So, don't be a coward, be true to yourself. Self-discipline high. Conscientiousness or cautiousness high. Cautiousness describes the disposition to think through possibilities before acting. Yeah, I would say I tend to think things through, and I'm a deep thinker. So yeah, I do think about different scenarios and different possibilities, but maybe not so. I do try to put that to. I try to not overindulge into overthinking things. I definitely used to be more like this in the past, but nowadays I try to, have a plan, but also I try to go with what feels correct. And when you get lost in thought, you can think of 1,000 different ways something will turn out, and none of them might be correct. And all of the ways that you have thought maybe lead you to some destination, but even if it's considered good by some other person's standards, once you reach it, you may still feel empty inside. So don't go for theoretical success. Go for what is in here. Again, this is my primary. I'm gonna keep going back to what's in your heart, because that is what is important at the end of the day. All right, score how on the cautiousness scale. Take their time when making decisions. Yeah, sometimes I can make snap judgments, but also I tend to like to think things through. Yeah, low scores often say or do things first that comes to mind. Yeah, anyway, without deliberating alternatives and the probable consequences of those. So it's good to think in terms of things in a way pros and cons. But yeah, don't overdo it. Don't fail don't fail to launch, because the hidden reality is that some people will, create this endless cycle of never really making a choice, because they're just constantly weighing on the one hand, on the other hand, on the one hand, on the other hand, and that this becomes an excuse. And so then the strategy is actually not choosing one of these things. The strategy, you can see by their behavior and their pattern, is to remain exactly where they are, because they're a little bit cowardly and afraid of change. So don't be like this. Yeah, give some due, process and consideration to, what you want to do. But ultimately, it's more important that you feel strongly about the decision, and then you move forward, than it is to constantly be weighing and thinking of yourself very highly, and that you're a very considerate person, because you never make a choice, because you're constantly weighing things. So anyhow, yeah, so that is pretty much all of, I think I've gone through all the 5 and all the little subcategories. I think this was very fun and insightful, and I hope, maybe you learned something about me, and maybe I've given you some things to think about yourself, and maybe how you would like to approach things. Yeah, so I will see you again, probably soon. Still working on a lot of things and my ideas, and it's always fun to practice my public speaking skills, especially when it's in front of a camera. And anyhow, have a good one.